All right, today we're jumping into a question that, well, it just doesn't seem to make sense. How can a planet that's mostly water be running out of it? It's a huge contradiction. Let's get into what's called the Great Water Paradox.
I mean, you remember this from school, right? We all learned we live on the blue planet. You see those pictures from space, and it's just this beautiful world of vast, shimmering oceans. It's the one thing we know for sure about Earth, that it should be a place with water everywhere, practically overflowing.
And that's where the paradox really hits you. If we're supposedly swimming in water, then why are we always hearing about a future that's defined by the complete opposite? How on earth do you go from being a blue planet to a world that's, well, running dry? And look, this isn't some sci-fi movie scenario, something happening centuries from now. We're talking about the very near future. The data is crystal clear. By 2025, that's just around the corner, nearly 2 billion people are expected to be living in areas with absolute water scarcity. So, what is going on here? What's behind this huge disconnect?
Okay, so to really solve this puzzle, we've got to look beyond the easy answers. It's not just about a lack of rain or some places being deserts. The real equation for water scarcity, it's a whole lot more complicated than that.
And right here, this is the absolute heart of the problem. It really boils down to two different things. First, there's what's called quantitative scarcity. That's the easy one to understand. It's just not having enough water because we're pulling it out of the ground way too fast for things like farming and industry. But here's the real kicker. Qualitative scarcity. This is where you can have tons of water all around you, but it's so polluted with chemicals and waste that it's completely useless. That's like being stranded in the ocean. Water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. A lot of our cities face exactly this problem.
So the big question is, where is all this fresh water actually going? Well, just take a look at this. That huge slice of the pie right there for irrigated agriculture, that tells you everything you need to know. It is, by a huge margin, the #1 user of our fresh water. Think about it. To feed everyone, we're just pumping water out of the ground at a rate that is completely, totally unsustainable.
And the consequences of using this much water? Well, they're pretty much what you'd imagine, and they are seriously alarming. This isn't just some abstract environmental problem. It creates this massive domino effect, It directly threatens our ability to grow food, and it makes the gap between different social groups even wider. It's a huge deal.
Okay, so let's rewind a bit. Right after India's independence, the new nation's leaders were staring this exact challenge in the face, and they decided to tackle it head-on with a really grand, super ambitious vision for how to manage the country's water.
And what was that grand solution? The multipurpose dam. And you got to admit, the idea was pretty brilliant on paper. The thinking was, let's build one single massive structure to solve a bunch of problems all at once. With one dam, you could water the fields, create clean electricity, get water to the cities, and stop terrible floods. It really seemed like the perfect, modern fix for everything.
This quote from India's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, just nails the whole feeling of that era. He called them the temples of modern India, and that's exactly how people saw them. These weren't just big lumps of concrete and steel. They were practically sacred symbols of progress. They were the engines that were going to drive the entire nation forward into a brand new, prosperous future.
And the promise they held was just immense. It was about so much more than just water and power. These dams were seen as the key to finally breaking free from the past, to knitting the entire economy together and launching the country into this incredible new era of growth and development.
But as these modern temples started rising up all over the country, a very different story started to unfold. Turns out, this grand, perfect solution, well, it was starting to show some pretty serious cracks.
First off, the ecological price tag was just staggering. See, when you dam a river, you're not just stopping water, you're messing with an entire living, breathing system. You choke off its natural flow. Sediment gets all backed up, which means vital nutrients can't get downstream. You're essentially starving the ecosystems that depend on that river. And at the same time, the huge lakes created by the dams were drowning entire forests and precious soil.
And the problems didn't stop there. The really ironic part, these huge dams, built to prevent floods, could actually end up causing them because of all that built-up sediment. Not only that, but they led to massive displacement, forcing entire communities out of their homes. And on top of it all, they lit a fire under these intense political fights between states over who really gets to control the river's water.
So, as you can imagine, a lot of people started pushing back against these giant projects. They started looking for another way forward. And funny enough, They found it not by looking to the future for some new technology, but by looking way, way back into a deep well of ancient traditional wisdom.
And let's be clear, this wasn't some new age idea. The history here is just incredible. We're talking about a long, sophisticated tradition of water management in India that goes back literally thousands of years. I mean, way back in the 1st century BC, they were figuring out how to channel floodwaters from the Ganga. They built huge dams and artificial lakes centuries ago. People had always found these really clever ways to work with their local environment.
Okay, check this out. Take the tanka system from the really dry parts of Rajasthan. The whole concept is so simple, it's brilliant. Imagine this. Your own roof becomes the water collector. A pipe runs from the roof down into a big underground tank. Now, the smart part is you let the very first rainfall of the season just wash everything clean, you don't collect that. But after that, all the rain is funneled right into the tank. And this stored rainwater, they call it palar pani, is actually thought to be the purest water you can get.
Now you're probably thinking, okay, that makes sense for a desert, but here's a wild thought for you. What if I told you that one of the absolute rainiest places on the entire planet was also facing a massive water shortage?
Get ready for this. The city of Shillong is just a stone's throw away from the places that get the most rainfall in the entire world. And yet the city itself has a severe water shortage. So what's their solution? You guessed it. Rooftop rainwater harvesting. Almost every single house has one, and it provides a huge chunk. We're talking 15 to 25% of all the water they need. This is the ultimate proof. Water scarcity isn't just about how much rain you get, it's about how you manage it.
And it's amazing how effective these old methods are today. Take this one village, Gindarthor. About 200 households there have put in these rainwater harvesting systems. And together, each house can collect an incredible 50,000 liters of water every single year. The village has literally become known as rich in rainwater. How cool is that? And you know, this isn't just a handful of villages doing this anymore. It's actually becoming official policy. The state of Tamil Nadu became the very first in India to make rooftop rainwater harvesting compulsory. I mean, mandatory for all houses. If you don't do it, you can face legal action. This is ancient wisdom getting a brand new life as modern, smart public policy.
So it really brings us full circle, doesn't it? The country built these gigantic modern temples out of concrete and steel, truly believing they were the one and only way to progress. But what if the real solution, the most sustainable, the fairest, and honestly the wisest one, was actually much smaller, much older, and was literally right there on our rooftops the whole time?